mean, I would think that would be the challenge, right? How do you depict Jesus, whether in fiction or on the screen, being both God and man?
What do you mean by that? Like real yet not blasphemous sort of thing? Like Scorsese or Nicholas kind of went over the board, I think. You know, with what do you mean by
fully
that?
human? I mean, how do you make Jesus fully human, but not a sinner?
Okay.
And how do you show that he's divine without it being like out of the realm of, where he's no longer doesn't look human, or it doesn't act as like a human being? I don't know how you do that other than unless you are Jesus, and you just are. But
lightning bolt fingers is what I would do.
Yeah.
Just lightning bolts coming. That's what
Didn't they do that with the Emperor in Star Wars though?
Yes, Ross. That was also challenging. How do we make him? Okay, sorry, Tim. Go.
No, it's fine.
So what do you think? How do they do with that?
Yeah, I think actually pretty well. I think there were some powerful moments in terms of what Jesus does, casting demons out of Mary Magdalene. They decide to make her a prostitute in the show, which I think is, it's one of the things like, and actually
although she's also possessed, so the possession put her in that life, I think, is kind of the idea, right? Which makes more sense than simply what a lot of people think about her.
I don't really know how to say it. I loved it, and I also didn't. I'm not sure exactly, because and here's the challenge, I think, in terms of reproducing things from the Bible, is you're not just telling a story that you're made up. There are actual things written down, and there are lots of gaps, right? And so that's kind of the thing. They do this all over the show, and I don't think this is necessarily wrong. I mean, I don't think it's bad to fill in gaps and kind of put backgrounds to characters. Like, how are these? Nicodemus is all throughout the whole thing, and he shows up twice in the Gospel of John, or 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's something different about it being on the screen, which is like, people who watch it, there's something different from seeing Jesus on the screen than reading about him. And there's something about that I'm not quite sure. I think it affects us differently when we think about who Jesus is. But it raises some questions for me in terms of, depictions, and, you have to interpret things like the woman at the well in Samaria. You have to interpret what they're talking about and how they, what they mean, and various other points where you're interpreting and putting on the screen what you think they're talking about. And then people who watch that are going to have,
it's confirmed.
It's the difference between, reading a book and watching a movie in general. I think,
is it limiting? Is that the issue? Like it limits then sort of the imagination or the.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question, right? Because people imagine things when they read it anyway.
Sure.
And probably have some kind of picture, maybe not a very defined one, but some kind of picture of Jesus. And so it's a good question. I'm not sure I have a good answer. It raises sorts of questions about, and like when Jesus is taught, this is probably the one thing that bothered me theologically, was when Jesus is talking to the woman at the well, and he says, you worship in spirit and truth. And he says, heart and mind. And he says, it's all about what's in your heart. In terms of worship, you can worship anywhere. It's what's in your heart. That's probably the one thing that bothered me theologically.
And it should.
Otherwise, I just kind of had some things like, I have a different interpretation of what's going on there. I mean, nothing, the gaps they fill in, I don't think are outside of the pale or something. Matthew is maybe a little autistic, and
yeah, that's good.
Which is on the spectrum, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an interesting choice for a guy. He's good with numbers, and he has this very specific gift. It's interesting. I think they kind of conflate.
This is underwear at Kmart. It's weird.
They're conflating him with Zacchaeus, I think. Does Jesus go to Matthew's house?
I don't think any time does it say that. Yeah.
I know he eats at tax collectors, with tax collectors and sinners. there's some powerful moments. So I don't want to deny that it has some, some strong spiritual content, and I'm not saying don't watch it or it's not good or something, but it just raises some questions for me about how we view Jesus and then the difference between reading and watching.
That's really well said. That's I think overall, would you say grace is the predominant theme? Mercy, I think. I've not watched them all, by the way, but this couple I've seen, you can see clearly broken people, Jesus loving people that people don't love. Not to be too loosey-loose with that either, but that's kind of the theme, which is good. So I think what you're saying is they definitely, so far where I'm at, they're developing these characters of Nicodemus, and I didn't even know this watching. I was totally lost. Like, where are we right now? It's absolutely, for the first couple of episodes, invented from the characters that we know. So it is taking what they would know, and I think historically, intellectually, these are what they're not wrong in saying this is possibly what their storyline might be of this character, right? And that makes it very interesting. I think what you're saying is when it's on screen, that's it, because you got to make a choice, and here it is. And there is no words that some people might go and say, man, I can really relate to that as a, like you just said, OCD or autistic person, whereas somebody else might take it and they're really focusing on this. Well, when it's on the screen and you make those choices, because you have to have a story, then now you're telling people this is what it is. And I think that's where you're kind of, now you're in a box now, and you have to, that's how it is. For theologians, I think it's great because it makes you go like, oh, that's interesting. I never thought about he'd be like this. For and you're just getting Jesus through this, you might be thinking this is the character of these characters, even Jesus.
Yeah.
That's the
I mean, I think the best way to watch it would be is if you had like a group of people and you watch it and then you compare it with the scriptures and talk about the different things.
Thought-provoking.
I mean, it's clearly an evangelistic.
Yeah.
It's an evangelistic thing, and it's well done. I mean, again, I don't think I've seen anything that's sort of in this realm. I mean, this is not God's Not Dead. This is, which obviously has a high production value too. I've never seen it. I'm lying. I don't know what it. I don't know if it
That's
does.
terrible. The acting's terrible. The story is just too cheesy.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
I really enjoyed it personally.
They missed some baptismal opportunities.
I liked it when the guy was dying at the end and he was forgiven. And that's good.
You mean when it was like he's dying, his life sucks as it is, and then you got some lady yelling at him, telling him, "You need to convert now. You're going to hell." Like this beautiful gospel at the end.
Now, if they would have taken a puddle water and dumped it on his head and said he was baptized, then you have something there.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I have this internal block that's keeping me from watching those sorts of movies.
I mean, they can't all be courageous or fireproof.
There are still LCMS pastors that go around saying, "God is good all the time." Good all the time.
All the time. God is good.
Whatever that is.